Your salary went up 4% this year. Congratulations. You got a cost of living adjustment. Your boss said you earned it. You feel recognized, appreciated, like you're keeping up. But milk is up 11%. Eggs are up 30%. Your rent increased 8%. Gas is up 35% from 2 years ago. Car insurance is up 20%. Your healthcare premium went up 6%. Your grocery bill is somehow $200 more per month than it was last year, and you're buying the same stuff. You're making more money than ever before, and you're broker than you've ever been. This isn't bad luck. This isn't temporary. This is inflation. And inflation is the most effective wealth transfer mechanism ever invented. It takes from people who hold cash and labor, and it gives to people who hold assets and debt every single time, without exception, for centuries. Let me show you exactly how this works and why the rich get richer during inflation while everyone else gets destroyed. Because once you see the mechanism, you can't unsee it, and you'll never think about money the same way again. Meet Jennifer. She's 31, makes $73,000 a year as a project manager. She's good at her job. She got a 3.5% raise last year. She has $35,000 in her savings account, earning 0.5% interest because she's being responsible and keeping an emergency fund. She has $18,000 in her 401k. She rents a one-bedroom apartment for $1,650 per month. She's doing everything right according to conventional wisdom. Now meet Robert. He's 35, makes $80,000 a year as a software engineer. But Robert owns a duplex he bought 5 years ago for $380,000 with a $304,000 mortgage at 3.2% interest. He lives in one unit and rents the other for $2,100 per month. His mortgage payment is $1,320. He has $50,000 in stocks and $8,000 in his checking account. Same age range, similar incomes, completely different financial situations. And when inflation hits, their wealth diverges catastrophically. Let's run the actual numbers on what happens to both of them when inflation runs at 7% for 3 years. Jennifer's $35,000 savings account is earning 0.5% interest. Inflation is 7%. She's losing 6.5% per year in purchasing power. After 3 years, her $35,000 can only buy what $28,700 could have bought when she started. She lost $6,300 in real purchasing power. Her money just sitting there, safely in a savings account, getting destroyed by inflation. And that's before we talk about what inflation does to her rent and expenses. Her rent goes up 6% per year with inflation, from $1,650 to $1,965 over 3 years. She's now paying $3,180 more per year in rent than she was before. Her grocery bill increases proportionally. Her car insurance increases. Her utilities increase. Everything increases. Meanwhile, her salary goes up 3.5% per year. She's falling behind by 3.5% annually. Her real purchasing power decreases every single year. She's working the same job, getting raises, and getting poorer. After 3 years, Jennifer's real income has decreased by about 10% when adjusted for inflation. She's working just as hard. She's being just as responsible. But she can afford 10% less than she could 3 years ago. That's inflation destroying her standard of living in real time. Now let's look at Robert. His mortgage payment is fixed at $1,220 per month. It never goes up, ever. Inflation runs at 7%, 8%, 10%, doesn't matter. His payment stays exactly the same. But his tenant's rent? That goes up with inflation. He raises it from $2,100 to $2,503 over the same 3-year period. His rental income just increased by $403 per month. His mortgage payment stayed flat. 3 years ago, his tenant's rent covered his mortgage and left him with $780 per month in cash flow. Now the rent covers his mortgage and leaves him with $1,183 per month. His cash flow increased by $403 per month, or $4,136 per year, just from inflation. He didn't work harder. He didn't improve the property. Inflation transferred wealth from his tenant to him automatically. But it gets better for Robert. His mortgage balance is being paid down by his tenant, and he's paying it down with inflated dollars that are worth less than when he borrowed them. He borrowed $304,000 in real dollars, but he's paying it back with dollars that are worth 20% less after 3 years of 7% inflation. He's effectively getting a 20% discount on his debt just from inflation. The bank is losing purchasing power on the money they lent him. Meanwhile, his property value increased with inflation. If real estate tracks inflation, his $380,000 duplex is now worth about $465,000. He gained $85,000 in equity from appreciation, plus he paid down about $30,000 of principal over 3 years. His total equity went from $76,000 to $191,000. He gained $115,000 in net worth in 3 years, while Jennifer lost purchasing power on her savings. But wait, there's more. Robert's $50,000 in stocks. If they returned 10% annually, they're now worth $66,500. That's $16,500 in gains. Some of that is inflation, some is real growth. But even if stocks just kept pace with inflation at 7%, he didn't lose purchasing power like Jennifer's savings did. His assets floated up with inflation. Her cash got destroyed by it. Let's add it all up. Robert's net worth increased by approximately $130,000 over 3 years while doing basically nothing. Jennifer's net worth decreased by $6,300 in real terms, and her cost of living increased by $3,780 per year, while her salary didn't keep pace. Same time period. Similar starting points. Completely different outcomes. This is how inflation transfers wealth, from people who hold cash and labor to people who hold assets and debt. It's not random. It's not luck. It's the mathematical certainty of how inflation works. Now let me show you why this pattern repeats at every economic level. Take a billionaire with $1 billion in assets. When inflation hits, their assets inflate too. Real estate appreciates. Stock portfolios increase in nominal value. Businesses raise prices. Their $1 billion becomes $1.2 billion in a few years of inflation, even if nothing fundamentally changed. Meanwhile, a worker making $50,000 gets a 3% raise and falls behind by 4% to inflation. The billionaire's wealth grew by $200 million. The worker's purchasing power shrank. But here's the really insidious part. The billionaire probably has debt. Lots of it. Maybe they have $300 million in mortgages on their real estate portfolio at 3% interest. Inflation is running at 7%. They're being paid 4% per year to hold that debt. The real value of their debt is shrinking while their assets are inflating. They're getting richer from both sides. Assets up, debt down in real terms. The worker has no debt and no assets, just labor and cash, both of which lose value during inflation. This is why every period of high inflation in history has been a massive wealth transfer from the poor and middle class to the asset-holding class. Weimar Germany in the 1920s, the US in the 1970s, Argentina for the last 80 years, Zimbabwe in the 2000s, Venezuela in the 2010s. Every single time, the same pattern. People with cash and wages get destroyed. People with assets and debt get richer. And the government loves this because governments are the biggest debtors in the world. The US government has $34 trillion in debt. When inflation runs at 5%, the real value of that debt shrinks by 5% per year. That's $1.7 trillion per year in real debt reduction just from inflation. They're inflating away their obligations, paying back in dollars that are worth less than when they borrowed them. It's the perfect scam. They issue debt, spend the money, and then inflate the currency to reduce the real burden of paying it back. And who pays for this? You do. Every person holding dollars, every person on a fixed income, every person with savings in a bank account, every worker whose wages don't keep pace with inflation. You're all subsidizing the government's debt reduction through your loss of purchasing power. This is why central banks target 2% inflation as healthy, not because 2% is economically optimal for you, because 2% is the perfect rate to slowly transfer wealth from savers to borrowers, from workers to asset holders, from the poor to the rich, without causing enough pain that people revolt. It's wealth transfer in slow motion, imperceptible year to year, devastating over decades. If you had $100,000 in a savings account in 2000 earning 1% interest while inflation averaged 2.5%, by 2024 your money can only buy what $69,000 could have bought in 2000. You lost 31% of your purchasing power over 24 years just by saving responsibly. Meanwhile, someone who bought an index fund with that $100,000 in 2000 would have over $600,000 today, massively outpacing inflation. Same time period. Same starting amount. One person saved responsibly. One person invested. The saver lost purchasing power. The investor multiplied their wealth. Inflation punished the saver and rewarded the investor. This is not an accident. This is how the system is designed. Let me show you the exact mechanism that makes this wealth transfer possible. When the Federal Reserve creates new money, that money doesn't enter the economy evenly. It goes to banks first, then to large corporations who can borrow cheaply, then to asset markets as people invest that cheap money. Stock prices go up, real estate prices go up, commodity prices go up. The people closest to the money creation get to spend the new money before prices rise. By the time that money trickles down to workers through wages, prices have already increased. You get your 3% raise 6 months after inflation has already hit 5%. You're always behind, always chasing. The person who borrowed money to buy real estate 2 years ago just saw their asset appreciate 15% while their debt stayed fixed. They won, you lost. And the gap between winners and losers grows with every inflation cycle. This is called the Cantillon effect. It's been understood for 300 years. The people closest to money creation benefit. The people furthest from it suffer. And in modern economies, workers are the furthest from money creation. We get the new money last, after it's already diluted the value of existing money. We're always on the losing end of the wealth transfer. Here's what makes this particularly brutal right now. From 2020 to 2023, the U.S. money supply increased by over 40%. The government printed and spent trillions. The Fed bought trillions in assets. All that new money entered the system. And where did it go? Asset prices. Real estate up 30–40%. Stocks up 50% plus. Bitcoin up 400%. People who owned assets got massively wealthier on paper. But your wages? Maybe up 10 to 15% if you were lucky. Meanwhile, your actual cost of living, food, rent, energy, insurance, up 25–30%. You got a raise that didn't keep up with your expenses, while people who owned assets before the inflation saw their net worth explode. The wealth transfer happened in 3 years. Trillions of dollars moved from workers and savers to asset holders and debtors. And now everyone is confused about why they feel broke despite making more money than ever. Because your dollar income went up, but your dollar's purchasing power went down more. You're making more dollars that are worth less. It feels like you should be doing better, but you're doing worse. That's inflation gaslighting you in real time. So what do you do about this? How do you stop being on the losing end of the wealth transfer? The answer is simple, but requires completely changing how you think about money. You need to stop holding cash and start holding assets. You need to stop relying purely on labor income and start building income from capital. You need to become the person inflation helps instead of the person it hurts. First, minimize cash holdings. Keep 3 to 6 months of expenses in an emergency fund, and that's it. Everything else goes into assets. Holding large amounts of cash is paying an inflation tax every single year. Your $50,000 sitting in savings is losing $3,500 per year at 7% inflation. That's $3,500 you're donating to inflation. Stop doing that. Second, buy assets that appreciate with or above inflation. Index funds, real estate, commodities, anything that holds or increases value when the dollar loses value. A stock portfolio doesn't care if the dollar is worth less. The companies raise their prices and pass inflation through to consumers. Your shares appreciate in nominal terms. Real estate appreciates with inflation. Commodities are inflation hedges by definition. Third, if you can, take on fixed-rate debt to buy appreciating assets. A 30-year fixed mortgage at 6% is a bet that inflation will make that debt easier to pay over time. If inflation averages 4% over the next 30 years, you're paying back the loan with dollars that are worth way less than when you borrowed them. You're doing what the government does. Borrowing in today's dollars, paying back in tomorrow's weaker dollars. Fourth, build skills that increase your bargaining power for wage increases. Inflation destroys workers who can't demand higher wages. If you're in a job where wages are sticky and raises are minimal, you're trapped on the losing side. You need to either develop skills that command premium pay, switch to industries with better wage growth, or build income streams outside of employment entirely. Fifth, understand that saving money in bank accounts is not the path to wealth during inflation. It's the path to slow wealth destruction. The money you save today needs to be deployed into assets as quickly as possible. Sitting in cash waiting for the perfect opportunity means inflation is eating your capital every day. Time in assets beats timing the market, especially during inflation. Here's the uncomfortable reality that nobody wants to say out loud. The current economic system is designed to favor people who already have assets. Inflation is a feature, not a bug. It reduces the government's debt burden. It keeps asset prices rising so people feel wealthy even as their purchasing power erodes. It punishes savers and rewards borrowers. And the people with the most assets and the most debt benefit the most. If you're a worker with no assets, you're on the wrong side of the wealth transfer. Every year of inflation above your wage growth is a year you get poorer in real terms. Every dollar you save in cash is a dollar that buys less next year. Every rent payment you make is money transferred to a landlord whose asset is appreciating. You're running on a treadmill that's tilted against you. But if you own assets, inflation is your friend. Your real estate appreciates. Your stocks go up. Your debt gets cheaper to service. Your wealth compounds even if you do nothing. You're on the right side of the transfer. labor. This is why wealth inequality has exploded over the last 40 years. Inflation has been consistently above 0%, transferring wealth from workers to asset holders for 4 decades straight. The bottom 50% of Americans own almost no financial assets, just checking accounts and maybe small retirement accounts. The top 10% own 89% of all stocks. The top 1% own most real estate beyond primary residences. When inflation runs hot, the bottom 50% lose purchasing power. The top 10% gain wealth. The gap widens every single time. This isn't a political statement. This is math. And the math is brutal. If you don't own assets, inflation destroys you. If you own assets, inflation enriches you. There's no middle ground. You're either on one side of the transfer or the other, and most people are on the losing side without realizing it. I know this is depressing. I know it feels like the game is rigged. That's because it is rigged, but rigged doesn't mean unwinnable. It means you need to understand the rules and play accordingly. The rule is, assets win, cash loses. Labor is necessary but insufficient. You need capital working for you, not just your time. Here's what I did when I figured this out. I stopped trying to save my way to wealth. I started buying assets even when it felt scary. I bought index funds during market highs because I understood that inflation was a bigger threat than market volatility. I bought real estate even though it felt like I was overpaying, because I understood that waiting meant inflation would make it more expensive later. I minimized cash holdings because I understood that cash is a melting ice cube during inflation. And over 10 years, my net worth has grown far beyond what my salary alone would have produced. Not because I'm smart, because I positioned myself on the right side of the inflation wealth transfer. My assets appreciated. My mortgage got cheaper in real terms. My investment returns outpaced inflation. I stopped being the victim and became the beneficiary. You can do the same thing, but it requires accepting that the old rules don't work anymore. Saving money in a bank account is not financial responsibility during high inflation. It's financial suicide. Working hard at your job is necessary, but not sufficient. You need your money working just as hard as you are. Building wealth through labor alone is nearly impossible when inflation is transferring wealth from labor to capital. The people who figure this out early will build wealth. The people who keep playing by the old rules, save in a bank account, work hard, get raises, live modestly, will get destroyed by inflation over the next 20 years. Not because they're doing anything wrong, because the system is designed to punish that exact behavior. Comment below your biggest asset right now. Is it cash and savings? Is it your house? Is it stocks? I guarantee most of you are going to say cash or retirement accounts. And that's why most of you are losing to inflation. The winners in this game have most of their wealth in real estate, stocks, or businesses. The losers have most of their wealth in cash. That's the divide. If this video made you angry, good. You should be angry, but turn that anger into action. Stop holding cash. Start buying assets. Stop waiting for prices to come down. Start understanding that inflation means prices go up, which means waiting makes things more expensive. Stop trusting that your salary will keep pace. Start building capital that works independent of your time. Subscribe if you want more of this. More uncomfortable truths about how money actually works instead of how you wish it worked. More data-driven strategies to stop being the victim of wealth transfers and start being the beneficiary. More real talk about why everything you were taught about money was designed to keep you poor. Inflation is the greatest wealth transfer mechanism in human history. Now you know how it works. Now you know which side you're on. The only question is whether you're going to stay there or do something about it. Thanks for watching. Stop saving cash. Start buying assets. The wealth transfer is happening whether you participate or not.